co-creating a world filled with positive possibilities while leading by example, My Power of One takes a stand for kindness. In The Wizard of One, Sue Vicory is joined by new guests in each episode to share inspiring stories and challenge the listener to continue transforming humanity one word and one act of kindness at a time. Be sure to stop by mypowerofone.com and join the movement at mypowerofone on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Well, good morning. Oh, I started it on I started the recording on here. Yeah, we're good to go. Hello and welcome to the Wizard of One, a magical journey of kindness. We are brought to you by My Power of One. My name is Sue Vicory, and today I'm in the studio with Francine Filsinger. Good morning, Francine.
Good morning.
Today is going to be a little different because I will be fielding questions rather than asking them. I asked Francine to join me today because she is a longtime friend of mine, San Diego based, more specifically Encinitas. And Francine's background is very diverse throughout business, the arts, and public policy. She's a former commissioner of the arts, and I think we'll talk about that a little bit. Founder and producer of the Encinitas Student Film Festival, former president of the San Diego Filmmakers, founder of the San Diego Women's Film Network, and former area director of California Alliance for Art Education. So you can kind of see why we are aligned between the two of us. As president of San Diego Filmmakers, she helped spearhead the effort with the city and county of San Diego to reopen the San Diego Film Office, winning. At that time, she won the My Power of One award, which I was able to present to her. Francine is a classical pianist. She is an award-winning published fine art photographer whose work may be found in fine art galleries, private collections, museums, and industry periodicals. Her work is on permanent collection with the Women's Museum of California, which I have personally been to. Francine most recently executive produced and directed the nationally broadcast reality TV series Win Play Show, which progressed to the Blue Ribbon round for National Emmy. She also produced, directed, and wrote the heart-tugging documentary, Creating Legacy, the Founding of San Dieguito. Did I pronounce that right? Dieguito.
Yeah.
River Park. And I had the honor of working with her a little bit on both of those projects. So Francine, welcome. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, so good to be here, and it's so good to see you. And I'm looking forward to torturing you because it's one of my favorite pastimes. We're here today to turn the tables and interview the notorious Ms. Sue Vicory, president of Heartland Films and president and founder of My Power of One. While doing my research for this podcast, I realized so much had already been written about Sue. The interviews conducted pretty much talked about her projects and the motivations behind them, but not a lot about the Sue that I know and many of you know and love. So I thought today would be fun if we looked at some different things about our Miss Sue. These questions were lovingly and thoughtfully prepared to let her talk freely about her inner self, rather than what she does. Today, we'll spend our time learning about her many adventures, but we'll also take a look at lessons learned and dreams realized. Were there any regrets or disappointments along the way? And what are her next challenges moving forward? Sound good? You can
Perfect.
Answer, Sue. Does that
Bring
sound
it
good?
on, Francine. Bring
Or
it
are you
on.
terrified?
No.
Unfortunately, we only have an hour to spend with Sue, so for a fuller description of her many accomplishments, and I do mean many, they can be found on her websites at suevicory.com and mypowerofone.com. All right, let's begin with a few of the basic background particulars for those of you who don't know too much about our Sue. She was born, first of all, centuries ago in a sleepy little town in northern Illinois, but she grew up throughout the Midwest. She currently lives on an 80-acre farm just outside a small farming community in East Central Kansas. She studied computer resources and completed a BA from Washburn University and a master's from Webster University. She married her college sweetheart, Jay Vicory. They have two daughters, Tracy and Katie, and one grandson, also known as the wisdom of the ages. That's what I like to call him. Her passions include film, music, travel, the great outdoors, and especially anything to do with water. But I would also add an insatiable passion for the Kansas City Chiefs. No one's perfect. Sports talk radio, mowing the above mentioned 80 acres, and of course, ice cream. Since knowing Sue, I've added at least 5 pounds due to her ice cream addiction. No escaping her ice cream addiction. Anyway, Sue is a master storyteller with the kindest heart that seemingly spans space and time, a very rare gift. She is a deeply complex personality with strong motivations and drives to do the impossible. She brings voice where there is no sound, healing where there is only pain. She gives hope where despair reigns. Still, she perseveres regardless of the personal cost. I am especially honored today to guide you on our journey to hopefully reveal a small glimpse into what has helped form such a special treasure that touches the lives of so many. Meet Miss Sue Whitno Vicory. Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Hopefully have I made you blush yet?
No, not yet.
No. Okay. You're a 3-time Telly Award winning filmmaker. I know you hate that whenever people bring that up, but it's true and you've earned it. You often mention it was a simple whim that compelled you to sign up for film school at the New York Film Academy, correct?
Correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct, Francie.
I found this really interesting because in my years of knowing you, you are an incredibly organized and purposeful personality. This time, though, at age 48, why did you make such a life-impacting decision based upon whim? It seems out of character.
Interesting. That is an interesting reflection of me. And you have known me, gosh, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, maybe something fairly long. Through me living in Paradise, San Diego at the time. You know, the story goes at 47, I was alone in my house one night. The girls were off to college, and I said, who do I want to be the second half of my life? So I thought, I'm going to Google. No. What happened first was a documentary filmmaker came up out of the space of, wisdom. And so I got on my computer, and this is like 20 years ago, got on my computer and I Googled documentary filmmaker. And 10,000 hits showed up on my computer. The very top one said New York Film Academy. I thought, oh, I love New York. Let's see what they have going on. And I Googled, and they had a 1-week boot camp, Francine, in the fall of that year. And this was just after 9/11 happened the prior year. And I'm like, okay, I could probably be gone for 1 week. It was sponsored by AMC, which was headquartered in Kansas City. And I thought, yeah, what the hell? So I sign up that night. I mean, I pay half my tuition. I email everybody I know, and I'm like, you won't believe what I did. But it was 6 months off. It wasn't like the next week. It was like 6 months later. So 5 months happened, and then I had the second half of my tuition was due. And I'm like, oh, is this a dumb idea? Is it a waste of money? Is this, whatever? So I emailed my daughters and I said, what do you think? Is this a goofy, blah, blah. My oldest daughter said, Mom, go for it. So I did. Sent the second half of my tuition in, 48 years old. I'm headed to New York City, stay in a dorm. And within 1 week, we had to learn how to make a 3-minute non-dialogue 16 millimeter film in New York City, no less. So that was sort of the answer to your question. It was whimsical, which is not uncommon for my personality. And then I I trusted the instinct of my decision. And 20 years later, it's stuck with me.
Yeah, that's really what I was thinking about, because I remember some of the things that you often talk about, your intuition. You know, Gene Dixon talked about how you were predicted the first Super Bowl.
I did,
Chiefs
didn't I,
Super Bowl
Francine?
victory.
I did.
You did.
Didn't I?
Yes, you did. And I think that with you, there's a real interesting balance between intuitiveness, but also your logic. And that's what I found interesting about this decision, and then your subsequent story. You have a really, really good balance there. Okay, next question.
Let me finish up on that.
Oh, you have more. I'm sorry.
I just want to say, I've always felt like I had a great intersection of right brain, left brain. Once I got dialed into the right brain, which is the creative side of me, that's where that's where the light was. You know, that's where creation happens. But I've always been a number person, a number cruncher. You know, math really is my underlying mode of operation. So once those intersected, left brain, right brain, that was the formula for 20 years worth of making films.
Man, that is a great balance. That's the answer to part C of my question. It says, in your decision-making process, does reason generally guide you? And is there a place for impulsiveness? And what's the balance for you? And you just answered it. So there you go. Okay. So second question. This is another one of these
another good one.
Interesting insights into Sue. I'm very curious about, and it goes along with what we were just talking about in terms of your creative process. You've made films on such a broad range of subjects: homelessness, jazz, the blues, global humanity, and individual significance, even the history of your own family's business and your community's history. It's quite a lot of diversity, and I'm curious, do you choose your subjects, or do they?
Okay, so you froze up, Francine, but I think what you said was, do I choose my subjects or do they choose me? Am I right?
What did you say?
I said you froze up there for me, but
do you choose your subjects? Oh. What I said was, given the diversity of the range of topics, you know, that you have made films about, do you choose your subjects or do they choose you?
Okay. Valid question. Thank you. Do I choose my film topics or do they choose me? So my belief system about my life, Francine, is that I co-create my life, one word, one decision, one action at a time. So I know that me and the powers that be are always working in tandem. And sometimes I'll say to the universe, I'm ready, bring it on. I'll say that bold statement, just talking to, you know, the greater wisdom of life. And I know that once I say that, that means that I'm ready to receive. I do make decisions on my films very, very quickly. On the homeless film, which was my first film, again, in my house by myself one night after 9 months of going to film school and editing school, I said, okay, I suppose I better make a film now that, hang on, she got a problem? Oh, shoot. Okay, that's all right. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
We are now. Okay, good. I had to press record again, Francine. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Shall we ask?
Yeah, let's ask that question again. That'd be good.
Yeah. The question was, given the diversity of your subjects, homelessness, jazz, blues, global humanity, and individual significance, the history of your family, business, and your community, do you choose your subjects or do your subjects choose you when you're making a decision about your film choices?
Right. That's an excellent question, by the way. And I guess my belief system tells me that I understand the power of me being here is co-creating all my decisions with the greater wisdom of, of the universe, I might say. So when I know that once I take something on, I'm going to work on it till it's done. So I've never taken on a project that hasn't completed. And that takes a number of characteristics in itself to sort of face it all the way to the end. My first film about homelessness, I had gone to film school, I had gone to editing school, I had bought a camera and set up an editing suite. And then I said, boy, probably better make a film now that I've done all this preparation work for it. I said, what should my film be made about? And in that moment, Francine, the word homelessness came up. And logically, I've explained that it came up because I'd done about 10 years of urban volunteer work in Kansas City, and I knew some of the executive directors of the shelters. And I thought, well, this will be easy to get started with. I can, start with them. But in the long picture of life, as you know, I think most things pick us, whether or not we're bold enough to say yes to them and take the steps that it takes to actually bring them into reality. I have found the formula for me has turned out to be I can set an intention, and then I know that once I do, I've given life to it, kind of like giving birth to a child. And I know myself well enough by now that I know the formula is I'm going to complete it once I say that I'm going to. One thing I do on my films is I title them very early on, and I give them a title almost from day one. And that again is like naming a baby when it comes out. You've given it a name. And then after that, what I found, Francine, is that I'm kind of trotting along behind it until it shows up on the screen. So I'm the caretaker of it, as I am with anything I put in the world or any of us. So I think projects pick me, but then I have to be able to receive them. I have to be ready to do the dance. Some of my films have taken 5 years to make from beginning to end. It's not a short experience. So I have to be, I have to be bold. I have to be brave. I have to be in the learning mode, and all of those things are some of my specialties.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And I find that, our life experiences have an effect on us. And I know, like, even with my own photography, I find that the subjects tend to choose me, and I spend time with them. And when I feel that they give me permission to enter their world, that's when my best work is done. And I feel like an image or even a movie or anything that I'm working on creatively is success, is that that the image stays with the viewer long after it has left their sight. So once, if they're in a gallery or a theater or whatever, they're still thinking about it once its presence, that it has been a success. And I think that's because when that subject chooses you and you enter its world and you become one with it and you understand it and express its message, not your message about it, but its message through you, then it's at its most powerful.
Of course.
And that's what I like about your work.
Yeah.
You're at one with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is something that I was curious about, also along these lines. In your creative process, and we've talked a little bit about this, are you focused on teaching an audience about your subject, or is there room for you to learn from them? For example, what did your subjects teach you in your documentary 1 about the juxtaposition in an individual's significance and their position in global humanity?
So on the film 1, I had finished the jazz and blues film prior to that. And I thought to myself, like every film I've ever made, this is my last film. And I need a year break, I need some space in between. But I was on a flight heading back from a film festival, and I started doodling on my iPad or something, and the word 1, like, oh, I like that font, I like that color. And then all of a sudden it occurred to me, wow, that one word is so simple. I like it. It's pretty broad. Okay, I'll do a film called 1. So it kind of came up in that moment on a flight. And then from then I followed the trail. So I had an opportunity to film
Hmm.
In Africa, I had an opportunity to film all over the country, and it lined up for me. So, from the first film about homelessness, for me, Francine, that was a glimpse into humanity. You know,
Mhm.
I have a very privileged upbringing of a Leave It to Beaver family, and and I
Mm.
don't have drama or anything that's scarred me along the way. And so when I met our nation's homeless, who were living under trees, who were, fill in the blanks. The
Mm.
stories are
Mm.
vast. I felt like it gave me a glimpse into humanity, and that was transformational for me.
Yeah.
Never knew a homeless
Yes.
person, never
Mm.
was in line with one, but all of a sudden I'm connected with another human being who has a contrasted lifestyle from mine, and I found that fascinating. So on the film one, the reason I started on that one, besides just doodling the name, was social media was just really kicking up at that time, and people were utilizing it for soapbox, for politics, for opinions, for kind of like they do now. And I thought, wow, that's a lot of diversity. I mean, that's a lot of dissension. That's a lot of people being angry. And I thought, well, what if instead I explored what is common about all of us than what is different? Racism and all those things are,
Nice.
big conversations. And I thought, well, for me, what could I look at and what could I learn that makes us part of the whole, part of one, all of humanity, which is infinite. It's all of time. And so as I
Mhm.
said, I was filming in I went to orphanages in South Africa and met children that were, had AIDS and no parents and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, how enriching, how rich was that for me? And so all I can really do at the end is tell the story of my experience, just like in the homeless film. But it gave me a global look rather than a national look of human beings, because obviously we all breathe, we all have heartbeats, we all have, life and death, we have a beginning, middle, and end. So, and I feel like it's allowed me to become internally a caretaker of humanity. And that's how my heart beats, is as a caretaker for
Mm.
humanity, because I know I'm here for just a second in time. And then my legacy for every word, every podcast, every film, whatever I've ever done in my years is
Mm.
complete, and that you leave that behind. So I learned the globalness of humanity during the making of that film one.
That's what I like about the sculpture that we worked on, getting placed in the J Street Park, and its is called Humanity. It was kind of reflective of
There's
that
a train.
concept. Yes, I live on the coast, and we have a
I know
train
you do.
that runs constantly. But I love that because there were all these faces and hands, and reflected in the sculpture that Mady did so beautifully. And I think it just magnificently showed the compilation of individuals, but also the overall humanity, and that we are one. Um, but how often we are forgotten in terms of our individual significance. Um, but we are so important. And the movie, the documentary, I think so well expresses that. I'm going to move forward on a little different vein here. Your My Power of One crusade has raised tens of thousands of dollars and touched countless lives. It would be easy, to focus on a lot of these amazing acts of kindness, but let's look beyond the actual acts for a moment. And I want to ask you, what would you say is the most heroic thing you've ever done?
All right, that's a good question. The
Yeah, I
most.
want to focus on you a little bit.
Mhm.
What is the most heroic thing you've ever
Well, heroic indicates hero,
done?
and so that is being something to someone else that they depend and look on. I would have to say, Francine, you know how priceless and precious my grandson is to me.
Yes, yes.
When I first got married, I wanted to have children like on day one. I felt I must have had a
Yeah.
maternal gene, but I wanted children. I wanted 8 children when I got married. And after I had 2, I'm like, yeah, that's enough. So, being a mother, I used to say if people didn't know me as a mother through my children, they didn't really know me. But then guess what? The next generation showed up. And I have a bond with that child. Where's the Kleenex? I have a I have a bond with that child that I was just explaining to
We're gonna
somebody.
get more into it.
You're working on it, aren't you? On Easter, I was explaining to a friend of mine about grandchildren. He has grandchildren as well, and I said to him, Phil, Miles and my relationship is, I would call it otherworldly. And he stopped and looked at me like he'd never considered or quite understood what it was. And he knows me pretty well. He's known me a long time. And it's not something you can really have words to describe. But when Miles was a baby, he would look into my eyes like nobody's ever looked into my eyes in my entire life. And I thought, I'm watching your face, Francine. And I thought to myself, what is he looking for? And it was a soul connection that is beyond the physical. And it's hard for me to explain to other people. I've often thought if I have more grandchildren, how am I going to feel about them? But it took me by surprise. So for each other, Miles and I would say we are that to each other. Is whatever our connection is, it goes that, is beyond space and time, is has equal meaning to both of us. And he is a savior to me and a hero to me just by having life. And Tracy and Chris took him 7 years to get Miles, and but I started speaking to him before he was born. I started having conversations with him about the value that he had coming to earth, and so it's sort of classic of my spirituality. But I would say Miles, my relationship with Miles, my connection with Miles, my soul to soul with Miles is the single most defining moment that I can say so far, because it just took me by surprise. I'm like, I'm a pretty smart girl, but then he showed up
Yeah.
and like, wait, what?
He,
Yeah, changed everything.
he he did. He completely dismantled everything and brought you back to,
To
I
being a
think,
human.
what is
Yeah.
your complete, most purest essence.
Yes.
And maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I would agree. It's
Yeah.
probably the definition of love, which is, some people say it's a verb. I say that it's something spiritual that you have access to all the time. And through him, um, I could identify the depth and the breadth of humanity and love. And, through him, I don't know. It was, again, it really surprised me. And I'm grateful, so grateful to have that experience. So are you frozen up, Francine?
I'm going to switch up.
Okay, there you go.
You were for just a moment, but you're back. I'm going to switch up the order a little bit because you went into one of my questions, which was, let's see, what is it about your grandson Miles that has so completely captivated your heart? And you answered that question so beautifully. So I'm going to continue with that line of questioning, which you started on. And I'm going to add in there, same question, the homeless. What is it about the homeless that so captivated your heart? Because when I talk with you, there's always a real special tug when we're talking about the homeless.
So
don't tell me about visiting shelters and doing all these things. What is it in your heart that grabs you so profoundly? I've seen it in your eyes when you talk. What is it?
I think it's just the knowing, Francine, that that we matter as individuals, and some of us have luckier breaks than others, or luckier life stories than others. Some people choose things that are not about producing things like I do. I so I think it's really the connection is a word that connecting with others that are radically different than myself. It's a curiosity. Again, I'm using the word curiosity about lifestyles that I don't understand, never will understand, have not lived, thank God. But I think my biggest thing really is I really care about my life journey. I really care about the expansiveness of humanity. I think I matter to humanity, as do I think every other breathing human being that's ever been here matters. So I had read a book called the Spellbinder's Gift by Ogmandino before I made this film. And one of the things he talked about was he ran into a homeless guy on the streets of New York City, and he described him as an angel. And I saw homeless people as needed in our culture because they teach us things. They teach us about our values. They teach us about our limitations. They teach us about where we can grow as human beings. So I look at homeless people rather than eradicating it. I look at it as a needed education tool for, you know, the rest of us.
Hmm.
And so for me to grow through all of my projects as a human being and as a woman, that's best case scenario for me to grow spiritually and grow emotionally and intellectually and all that kind of stuff. The homeless took me there in a hurry because I was
Hmm.
absolutely fascinated with sitting with somebody who makes their home under a bush. I was blindsided by
Mhm.
what is that possible? And
Hmm.
it wasn't about. A lot of people said to me, "Oh, the government's not doing anything." They pointed the finger everywhere, but I wanted to own the responsibility of who I am in this world, and I'm the one that can make a difference. I can make a difference in this conversation with them. I can care and listen and look into their eyes like Miles looked into my eyes, right? And
Right.
so I know that I'm that powerful. So it was that
Hmm.
the homeless film, which was meant to be, um, absolutely transformed me from this pretty little life that I'd had and continue to have, by the way, to a
Mhm.
more levels of depth of caring and compassion.
Interesting.
Okay, same question.
Mhm.
What is it about Jay that has so completely captivated your heart?
Well, when I met Jay in college, I was 21, and I won't say we were opposites. We're opposites in lots of ways. He had lived in one house his whole life. I had lived in, 8 different states by then. Um, and I think I described him as being boy next door, Francine. He was very much, he was maybe kind of a loner, and had his like you. He was a photographer, and he loved nature and outdoors and all that kind of stuff. But I think our differences, and we've been together now 47 years or something very long, is that we are continue to learn and grow from each other. For instance, obviously, as you know, there's lots of decades of interesting activities, and I think the solidness of our friendship. On our very first date, we stayed up till 5 o'clock in the morning talking in his car just about life and stuff. And I think just the continuity by which he offers me in me flittering around in the world with all my wild and crazy activities, which I'm famous for. He is the stable factor the continuity that allows me to, fly free. And that is a factor that that is incredibly valuable. I have a huge support system. I've got a great family and friends, and so I've established that. I've created that, over my decades. But Jay, the continuity that Jay offers me and the stability allows me to be all the things that I have learned to be in this lifetime. So far, I still got a few decades to go.
Okay, so we're going to do a little scene study here. Picture this.
Okay.
You're on the farm. You're walking hand in hand with Jay up to Inspiration Point. The sun is setting.
Inspiration patio.
Yes. I always call it Inspiration Point because it's in the book. The sun is setting. A gentle breeze is blowing. You look deeply in his eyes and you say what?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think I need to say anything more than that.
Okay. That's beautiful.
That's succinct. No, I mean, honestly,
Succinct and complete.
yeah, it is. It is complete. And I obviously could say that to my parents, or so many, friends or people that have been my children. I have told Tracy and Katie over the years, they picked me, they picked us. Yeah, which takes away the responsibility of me being a mother. But that's one of my beliefs, is that people come into this world and they pick the things that they need to learn, the lessons that they need to learn in the decades that they're here. So I'm just one of 7 billion people that live here. I'm so grateful, and I, look at me. I'm living my dream. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And really, and you're frozen up
Okay.
again, but really,
Yeah,
really, I just want to summarize that and say, all my dreams have come true, and it's because I set intentions and I figured out how to turn them into my reality.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Switching gears a little bit. Let's see. I'm switching around here a little bit because you went into beautiful miles a little ahead of time, and kind of short-circuited what I was doing here, so I've got to backtrack a little bit. Let's see. You're living in Kansas now. You're a de facto Jayhawker. You recently premiered your newest featured documentary, Original Jayhawker, which is, of course, a wonderful, heart-tugging profile that I had the privilege to watch about your community. From it, I learned that Jayhawkers had a rather tumultuous history pre-Civil War. And I'm wondering if there's something in the Kansas water. Would you describe yourself a little bit as a rebel?
I would describe myself, and Jay grew up in Kansas. I did not. I arrived my senior year in high school, but have been in and around Kansas since 1971. I would describe myself, looking back on all the years of my life, as well, whimsical is a big word that I understand. If I had to be humorous, I would use the word naughty. I did go to the principal's office a few times when I was in grade school. Definitely ornery. Have a what I would consider a dark sense of humor. I entertain myself like it's nobody's business, and I do consider myself my own best friend. So I'm trying to think, what was your question actually? I think I got off base. What did you actually ask me?
Well, I asked you if you're a little bit of a rebel, and I guess I can put that with, tell us a little bit about the clandestine nighttime of decorating the Cardiff Coop. And to all those who may not be from this area of Southern California, the Cardiff Coop is it's a sculpture, and it's actually called Magic Carpet Ride, and it's located by the Swami's Break, surf break down in Cardiff, California. And it's a statue or a sculpture of a young person on a surfboard and in a less than correct surfing stance. And the local surfers like to dress him up for special occasions. And you can Google him. But somebody I know here to go unmentioned, right before the Chiefs played in the Super Bowl, decided to dress him up as Patrick Mahomes. And I was wondering if you knew anything about that clandestine nighttime operation that you want to talk about. And if that's indicative of your rebel streak.
That definitely is. When we moved to San Diego in 2011, I got acquainted with the whole North County, which for me is complete paradise. But the Coop was something that was really matched my interest in whimsical way of being. And I actually, Francine, dressed up the Coop when Tracy was pregnant with Miles. So it was, when you and I did our clandestine thing together, it was my second time to dress up the Coop. But that particular year you're talking about, the Chiefs made it into the Super Bowl. And I had predicted the prior July that they would win. So much so that I gave my sister a coffee mug that said Chiefs Super Bowl with the date of the year that they won on it. And she thought that was superstitious, and she didn't really like it. But when I emailed her, I signed all my emails Jean Dixon, because I said, I've predicted this, trust me. So when I came out to San Diego that winter, my instigation included you. And I said, Francine, let's dress up the Coop in the middle of the night as Patrick Mahomes. And you're a big Patriots fan. So plus I think you were still on the Arts Commission at the time. And you're like, oh, I don't know.
Yes, I was.
I don't need to go to jail. I live here, kind of thing. So I said, come on, let's do it. So we got Rich, our camera guy, together, and we met him there at 5 a.m. I picked you up, and it was still dark, and I had ordered the Patrick Mahomes hair and bandana and had a poster, and then Rich filmed the whole thing. So we dressed up the night before the Super Bowl. We dressed up the Coop as Patrick Mahomes. And I think the sign said Super Bowl win, and with the date, that kind of thing. And then, as I recall, it ended up on ABC or one of the networks covered it. So during the Super Bowl that year, you were watching and I was watching, but I turned my phone off because I did not want any interruptions. And I wanted to watch it second to second without any texting, without anything going on. And of course they won, because I predicted it. I'm Jean Dixon.
Yeah.
So that was definitely one of the many fun memories we have together. I think the police drove by while we were doing it, and there was some talk that they would arrest people that were doing it, and that was a great memory between us, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's really interesting about art, especially public art. I've often thought that a successful piece of public art is something that brings the community together. And oftentimes we think that, it's this fantastically beautiful art piece that everybody goes by and says, ooh, it's so wonderful, and let's take a picture with it and whatever. But in this case, it really is successful because it has brought the community, and say that word, community, together, because people celebrate anniversaries with it. They celebrate birthdays. They celebrate Super Bowl victories, dress it up. So it's not quite, I'm sure, what the artist had intended, but it really is a very successful piece. And that was a fun night. And I'm no longer on the art commission, so I guess.
And we didn't go to
we
jail.
can't-
We didn't go to
We
jail.
didn't go to jail.
Darn it. Yeah.
But I noticed that about you. There's this rebel streak, and kind of wondered if it had something to do with that Jayhawker background or something in the water. But
I do want to
I-
tell
I
one
think
quick,
it
I
was
do want to tell one
unfortunate.
quick story, Francine,
Yeah.
just to feed into that.
Yeah.
We've got about 10 minutes, so we want to make sure we get everything covered. But when I was in grade
Sure.
school in Milwaukee, for some reason, Francine, I left my classroom. I went down to the pay phone and I put a dime in and I tried to call the Beatles in London.
you did.
And back then you get the operator and you say to the operator, can you get me Paul McCartney or whatever? And this was in the 60s. So I kept hanging up and calling back and hanging up and calling back. And there was like a phone booth in the school. So at some point the operator calls back because, you know, here's this third grader, fourth grader, whatever age I was. And I dash out of the phone booth back to my class, and the principal happens to be walking up the hall at the same time. He goes in and answers the phone. Obviously, the operator is saying some child is trying to call the Beatles in London. So then he probably comes
no.
down to my classroom and he calls me out. And I think I had to bring my mom to the principal's office the next day. So, I mean, you know, it dates back a ways.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads into this other question. So think about in high school, we'll go forward about 10 years. You were the vivacious cheerleader, a diligent student, and a not so closeted rebel, as we just previously discussed. What character traits of that teenager helped to form the woman that you are today? And what would today's version of Sue tell that teenager back then?
Well, I think one of my life mantras definitely is to have fun. So as we make films, as we do whatever it is we do in all the decades of life, I always say our main goal is to have fun. Because, you know, without enjoying the ride or enjoying the striving or whatever you're doing, what's the point? So, you know, having fun, you know, I love to laugh. I like humor. Definitely what I would say to myself at any of those stages of life is, you know, enjoy the ride, choose happiness, and as an adult, you know, be present. You know, it's certainly my goal today, no matter what I go to or do, is just to be 100% present, you know, for the experience, whatever it is. You don't want to miss a thing because, you know, at some point you're, you know, a Grammy like I am now, and but antics can still happen, and they do. You know, my siblings and I are all pretty, you know, have versions of being, I won't say naughty, but you know, we run a family business now, and so we have to show up for life, but to have fun, I think is the heartbeat of that. I did want to talk a second about the word kindness,
Sure.
because sort of the thrust of this podcast is, we call it a magical journey of kindness, and it is you know, free for everybody. Doesn't cost anything. It doesn't take any training, any schooling, or anything to be kind. It certainly starts at home, you know, with yourself and self-love and all that kind of stuff. But kindness is an integral part of how I navigate my day to day, and it's I have a vast friendship group of friends and that I nurture and I check up on and I care about, and it's the nature of who I am. But I'm often thinking, what can I do today? What can I do for the community? All my films, probably from the beginning, Francine, have raised money for some cause. The homeless film that premiered in 2005 ended up raising $200,000 for shelters. The jazz and blues film raised money for arts projects in schools or art programs in schools. So an integral part of this full circleness of who I am is going back into community, or the community I live in. The original Jayhawker film you were talking about, the historical documentary that we just premiered last fall, we ended up raising $32,000 for a local splash park that is going to be complete next month, Memorial Day. So that feels right. It feels good, and again, they're all legacy things that you leave behind because you can. So kindness is
Talk to
certainly
us
one
about-
word, one action, you know, one intention at a time.
talk to us about legacy. I think oftentimes we think about monuments, but when you think about the, I was doing the student film festivals. I still get emails and texts from some of the students who are in high school who went on to schools like NYU, UCLA, Chapman, who are graduating from college now and having careers in film. And it was these workshops that we did with them and the chance to make student films and screen them that gave them a lot of confidence that this was something that they could do. And some of them, you don't really realize the impact that you have. And it's almost like taking a pebble and throwing it into a pond and the ripple effects. I tend to think about legacy, as life's changed. And I think you have a movement that's be the change that the world needs to see. How does it go? Be the world, be
Yeah,
the change the
be
world
the
needs to see,
change. Right. Yeah, I have a bench in Mound City that was created for one of my birthdays. It says "Be the change," and we did a
Yeah.
butterfly that people have their picture taken and be the change you want to see in the world. So in other words, own it.
Yes.
Become your own sort of source of power. One of the things I did want to say with you today
But we
is,
just want to real quick, just
Uh-huh.
that finish that thought, that the investment in the community in terms of the financial investments are really critical and important. But I think the life lessons that you teach by your example, for one, but also just the impact that it has on the individuals and then the way that multiplies because they pay that forward
right.
in the lives that are changed by them, and
Correct.
it multiplies. It's
Yes.
just it's an incredible effect. So
Yeah, infinitely.
your kindness is like a seed that sprouts and just multiplies beyond and,
Right.
and then reseeds. It's just a beautiful thing.
I
So
think
I'm
everything
sorry,
we
didn't mean
do
to
and
interrupt,
say,
but
yeah,
I
everything
never
we do
lost
and
that about you.
everything we do and say, Francine, whether it's positive or negative or neutral or whatever, exists in time forever. So when we become responsible for our actions and our relationships and the words that come out of our mouth, then we learn how to navigate our life. But I wanted to say really quickly that the My Power of One brand, which I put into the world in 2014, it'll have its 8th year anniversary next month, is about random acts of kindness. And I have a call on Monday with the National Coalition for the Homeless, the executive director, who's someone I interviewed many years ago. And I'm going to partner up with the National Coalition for the Homeless with the brand so that we can raise some money for them through the brand. So I'm going to co-create with you the possibility of our act of kindness that we leave behind in this conversation is that everybody that feels inspired to do so, to reach out in some fashion to a food pantry, go serve at a community-based homeless shelter, or rev it up. And there's so many ways you can touch somebody who's in a shelter or needs to be in a shelter. So my random act of kindness with you through the brand, especially being we're getting ready to partner with the National Coalition for the Homeless, is to do some action to a homeless person. Have a cup of coffee with them on a street corner. If you see them somewhere, have a conversation with them. They're fascinating, just like we're all fascinating. Listen, look into the eyes, like we talked about Miles looking into my eyes, and spend. It's transformational. So that's what I'd like to co-create with you is the possibility of everybody taking one action concerning a homeless individual.
Sounds good. I think we have time for one final question. What has surprised you the most in life? Is there anything you change, any regrets, anything you do more of? I think that will be our final question.
Right. All right. What are my regrets?
What has surprised you the most in life?
I think what has surprised me, many things.
there
Certainly.
anything you change? Prize?
Change. Yeah. I would guess both you and I would agree that the lessons that we've learned through our life experiences, whether we would want to do them again or not, are sort of the reasons we're here, is to learn and grow and be more compassionate human beings. So obviously I would not change a thing, because each
Mm.
one steered me in a direction, either by contrast or by, I love it and I got to have more of it. So wouldn't change a thing. Absolutely wouldn't change a thing. And I would say, if I had to say a superpower that has kept me lit up, would be my curiosity. I think I have a great imagination, but my curiosity about people, about life experiences, about myself, I'm always sort of examining myself in different ways. So I'm going to say the word curious or curiosity is my go-to word. As long as I can stay curious about life and others and things that I can learn, I'm in the game. I'm in life, and I choose to be that 100% engaged.
Well, my time is up. If you have more to add, otherwise, my last question would be, what's next? Or you have the last question. Your choice.
All right, what's next? I think I'm going to start with sort of closing the show, and in the midst
Yeah.
of that conversation, I'm going to see if what's next shows up, because I like to not
Okay.
think about my decisions. I like them just to show up organically. So let's see what happens.
Okay.
I want to start by thanking you, Francine. We have had a long friendship. We've worked together professionally and otherwise, for visiting with me and working so hard on the questions. I know you're up in the middle of the night sometimes working on your questions, and so together we got to spend this time on the podcast, The Wizard of One, which I like to call a magical journey of kindness. And then next month, or in June, we're going to have a unique guest on here, Stephen Toll, who is an artist. Francine, you'll appreciate that.
Nice.
He does wall art, graffiti wall art. He is quite talented. He is a tattoo artist, and he is a photographer. So, a lot of things you would identify with. He also is a recovering alcoholic, and he's a family man. He's, happily married with 2 kids and lives in Fort Scott, south of where our farm is. So I'm really excited. I've not met him in person, but I'm really
Wow.
excited to, I filmed some of his artwork that he's got in Fort Scott. Excited to meet him in person, and I think he'll be a really interesting, deep, introspective. But what's next for me? What's next for me? I don't ever look very far into the future. Although when I pick something, Francine, it usually is quick, and then I know once I do, it's going to get done. So I try to be careful about what I say I'm going to do, because it takes up a lot of time and energy and resources. Every film I've made from the beginning, I've told you this is my last film. And 20 years later, I guess I do want to say what we're working on. I have an animation film called After the Questions, based on a book that my daughters and I published a few years ago. And we had a call with a Canadian company this week, and she's going to pitch it to Disney. So animation is
Cool.
not something that of all the genres I've done, animation is not one that I've taken on. So curiosity again, I'm like, let's bring it on. Let's do. And we had a long Zoom with her, Tracy and I, and at the end of it, I said to her, Sabrina, there's no reason not to do this. And so she's going to Europe next month to sit with Disney and pitch this. So,
Nice.
adventure, and more adventure all the days of my life.
So, Gene Dixon, tell me, are the Chiefs going to win the Super Bowl this year?
Yes. You mean next year?
Oh,
In
gosh.
2023, you're saying? Next year? In 2023.
Next year.
Yeah, this next year.
Yeah.
So yes. Would you like a hot chocolate cup sent to you? Oh no, that's right. You're a Patriots fan. That's right. Well, we got Tom Brady back in the picture, so that's that revs that up. I like that. So
yeah, it'll be interesting.
I really appreciate you, Francine, as a human being and as my friend. And I love the friendship that we have. We've gone on some wild adventures ourselves. We like to call each other Thelma and Louise. We've been to LA on some adventures together. We've done the illegal kook in the middle of the night, and I think we bring out the best in each other. We've had a lot of great breakfasts at the Potato Shack there in Encinitas, and you are why humanity sits in J Street Park, overlooking the Pacific Ocean, which is exactly where she belonged. And because of you, because of our friendship, you helped me realize a dream that was meant to be for all of time. And I cannot tell you how meaningful that is. It's a significant story in my life. So, our friendship was meant to be.
And you're very precious, and I love you dearly. Thank
Well, we will touch base. Our time is up, and I will touch base with you in the next day or two and send you this inspiring talk that we've had together. And I just want to say thank you again, and I love you.
Love you too.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.